Welcome to Planet Marzipan Podcast,
your fish and Marillion podcast,
where we talk about all things in the planet of Marillion and fish. I'm Mezza, and here's my mate,
Craig Houston.
Hello and welcome to Planet Marzipan. I'm Mezza. I'm here with my good friend
Craig.
And we have a full house today. We're welcoming back people. We welcome back Guy Vickers to the podcast.
Hello.
Hi Guy. We welcome back Mark McCormac.
Hello.
Hello. And he's not been on for a while. We welcome back Claude Attard.
Hello there.
Hi Claude. And for the first time, we welcome Keith Wickenden to the podcast.
Hello, good evening.
Hi Keith. Hiya gents. You okay?
Very well, thank you.
As you can see from the title of the podcast, we're here to talk about a fairly momentous occasion in Marillion's history.
Since it's September when this is coming out, we think now's the time.
The departure of Derek. What you're going to hear in this podcast, there's going to be a mix of facts, opinion, and rumour, and it's up to you to decide which is which. There's the first disclaimer. We're going to start with the EMI press release that was released on the 15th of September 1988, and it read, "It is with regret that Marillion announced a change in their lineup. It has been mutually agreed by all 5 members that Fish leave the band. During the process of writing the new album, it became apparent that differences both musically and lyrically between Fish and the rest of the band were irreconcilable." I should have tried
irreconcilable.
That as well. Says keyboard player Mark Kelly, "Marillion have always worked as a democratic unit and will continue to do so. We're currently working on our new studio album, and as soon as we find a suitable vocalist, we'll be recording and planning live dates. Fish's contribution to Marillion has been invaluable, but we all knew it was time for a change. Steve, Pete, Ian and myself all wish him all the best with his solo career." Fish commented, "I've had a brilliant 7 years with Marillion. However, recently the musical directions of the band have diversified to such an extent that I realised the time had come to embark on a solo career. I'm very excited by this move, and I'm looking forward to continuing writing and performing music and getting involved in a number of alternative projects that I never had the freedom to pursue within the framework of the band. I still hold a great deal of respect for Marillion, and I want to thank them for giving me the opportunity of having reached this point in my career. The final words from Steve Rothery are as a gesture and a big thank you to our fans who've given us such incredible support so far. We're planning a live double album encapsulating Marillion's 7-year career to date, and we're hoping to see this released during November."
So that's a few episodes ago that we did a few months ago. So we went back if you haven't listened to that one.
It was recording the Thieving Magpie episode that prompted us to come up with this episode, because it's such a big change in the band. We felt it justified a whole episode on it. I've done a bit of reading. All these guys on the pod have got knowledge of what happened and their thoughts about it. I think from reading, was it in the Clutching at Straws booklet, Fish talks about first approaching the band to dismiss John Arneson on the Clutching at Straws tour in America.
I think you are correct there. His desire to leave was definitely brewing during that tour, that North American tour. Sort of there is a bootleg recording that I've got where Fish and Pete are having a bit of an argument on stage.
Oh
wow! And of
wow!
course, the audience wouldn't have picked it up, but you can hear it in the bootleg.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, they weren't effing and jeffing each other, but you could definitely tell tempers were a bit frayed, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So certainly things were breaking down at that point, you know.
Well, I think Fish talks about he'd convinced the band to get rid of John Arneson, and then he'd gone into town. John Arneson had arrived and talked the band round. He'd seen what was happening and sort of got them all back on side.
Yeah, but it was definitely emotionally checking out the band, or checking out of the band, even if he hasn't sort of said that he was off at that point. I mean, it's a public, yeah, it's been in various books, sleeve notes about his, how can I put this? You know, it was a case of, it was a big on the manager.
Yes.
You know, there's a number of things you can read over the years about that.
I just rewatched, there's a video on YouTube that's still there. That's an interview that he did in 1988. It's a full 40-minute interview.
A Man Called Fish.
Man Called Fish, yeah. So I mean that was recorded fairly early on, or in 88, and you can see his demeanor changing, because he was talking about, you know, being interested in acting and wanting to diversify himself a bit. Talked about the unhappiness on the Clutching at Straws tour that took it out of him with illness and his voice and press pressures. And there's lots of things there where he wasn't at all saying that he had any intention of leaving, but you could see some of the seeds had been sown early on. And it's an interesting interview, so it's there on YouTube if folks want to dig it out. We'll probably pop a link to it in the show notes.
Yeah.
There is an obvious narrative drive later on to make out that it's all because Fish wanted to fire John Arneson and the rest of the band didn't. But I think that drive comes from not wanting to talk about other things that it might have been and blaming it on somebody else and something else. I also think the narrative has changed over the years as to who wanted to leave the band or who didn't want to leave the band, and why that might have been. While I accept what Keith says about there being arguments on stage are things that happen in every musician's life and can happen in the moment and often don't reflect a long-term problem. But something that perhaps is more problematic is the person who really is behind an awful lot of what goes on in Marillion, and that's Steve Rothery, and the fight that he and Fish had during the making of Clutching at Straws, when Fish got him by the throat and held him up against the studio wall, is something that Steve Rothery has never forgotten. And I think that when you come to look at what happened and the press release, and I note the words mutually agreed, I think there are several people here who know that what Fish was saying about 6 years ago, which is different to what has been the general narrative, that he resigned. In fact, Fish didn't resign from the band. As he says at the time, he sent a letter making demands about how things should change. If they didn't change, he would be forced to take other steps. And the band decided that those other steps should be taken straight away. And they accepted, in inverted commas, a resignation, which he hadn't tendered. And that was the genesis of him leaving the band. But it was because they wanted rid of him, not because he was wanting to leave. Now, you may not feel that you can put that in your podcast. I don't know, but
that's fine. That's fine.
I mean, this is in the public domain because Fish gave
the letter though is the culmination of an argument that had been brewing for a long time, hasn't it? You know, there was the fallout about the potential book with Mark Wilkinson's artwork that the band weren't happy about. And Fish had arranged. They went for a meeting on the 8th of September at Fish's house. And I think the letter was the following morning after that meeting. And then on the 15th, EMI released the press release. So it all happened really quickly.
Really quickly.
The letter was the 9th, and there was an argument on the 8th, the previous day.
Yeah.
Between Fish and Mark.
But you've got the bullet points of what was in the letter, though, haven't you, Mark?
Fish was tired of all the shouting across rooms at each other. He went on to say that he was staggered and amazed at the way Mark Kelly had attacked him previous day. it was a contentious issue, and I spoke to Mark about it, and he doesn't want to talk about it publicly. Or he doesn't
Which
want
is fair enough, completely. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So there was an issue, but I don't know how important the main point of the letter is, and we'd have to talk to the band about that.
Yeah.
But John, you were going to interject something?
Well, yeah, because Fish has been, in the last year or so, Fish has been quite honest in saying that he was pushing to replace Mark with Mickey Simmons.
Simmons, yeah.
Because he'd met him, was it at the?
Well, he was right.
Hammy Double
Because-
O gig.
Because
or
they,
was it
yeah, he'd met him
charity
at the charity gig, the Double O
Yeah.
gig,
Yeah.
and because the band were in two camps, the four of the guys were writing the music, and Fish was off writing lyrics with the help of Mickey Simmons. So Mickey's sort of playing piano backup to him.
But apart from after the shouting thing, wasn't one of the next things the artwork we've already mentioned was one of the contentious things because of the book.
There was a book with Mark, where Fish was discussing how they got together and put the art together for the records. So there was an argument over the income and stuff like that, and who was entitled to it and that kind of thing, you know. I can see both sides. It's their records.
I can see both sides because the artwork is for the records. The records wouldn't have existed and the artwork wouldn't have existed if the records hadn't existed in the first place. But Fish probably thought it was his creative vision working with Mark Wilkinson to bring these things to life.
Yeah, but also hadn't they had to renegotiate with Fish the royalties and things rather than it being the old band mentality where they all had equal shares? Then
They-
he wanted. Then they wanted to change. Was it?
So
They only renegotiated with Fish after he left the band.
Was after they left? Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was part of the settlement of the legal proceedings he brought against the band subsequently.
Too right. You keep us right.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Mark Kelly talks about the artwork in the book, actually, in his book, and he talks about Fish wanted to keep up. They had a deal with Mark Wilkinson that they would pay a nominal fee for the original artwork for each of the pieces. They'd agreed as a band that Steve Rothery should have Market Square Heroes because he was a founding member. And then Fish wanted all the other artworks, and I think Mark suggested that they at least allow each band member to have one of them more, maybe a single cover or something like that, but Fish didn't want that to happen.
Again, this is all after Fish leaves.
Is it?
Yeah, I mean,
That's not the way it's written in Mark's book.
Well, they might or might not have been disagreeing about artwork, but they were primarily disagreeing about business matters, about John Arneson, as you said at the outset. And I mean, I'm just reviewing, but I'm not going to share it with you, the affidavit that Fish made in the legal proceedings between him and Marillion, to him talking about the letter and how all that came about. That he doesn't actually mention the argument, but he does mention a discussion on, I think, the 8th of September.
Yeah.
And he makes it clear in that affidavit that he wrote a letter requiring changes, and the next day he got a telephone call from John Arneson saying that the rest of the band wanted him to leave, and he asked that be put in writing, and it was put in writing. And this is what he told the world 6 years ago when he released Welsmerch. He said, "I didn't quit Marillion, they fired me." But subsequently he changed his mind again, and now the general narrative is that he quit, and he had to quit for his mental health, was what he said in more recent interviews. I think it doesn't really matter whether he quit or they saw the opportunity to get rid of him. The end was coming between them for all sorts of reasons.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Just happen in a vacuum. It was mutually acceptable for all of them at that stage because they weren't prepared to bend to what he wanted. And he had had enough of doing things the way they wanted.
So what struck me about the letter, and Mark showed me the letter because, as we know, I worked and the team worked with Mark on his book. Mark wasn't able to use it in his book because he thought he might be sued.
Yes.
So what struck me about it was I thought there'd be more about John Arneson in it.
Yeah, because he's always pushed that John Arneson was a lot to do with it, and he wanted rid of him.
Yeah,
because he thought that.
Well, they thought he was cheating them out of money, and he was booking too many tours and all that kind of stuff. So I'm surprised there didn't seem to be much angst, aggression, or anything towards John in that letter.
It doesn't actually talk about them removing John, does it? Which I thought was in there.
Nothing at all, and that was kind of said publicly, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
No, it's funny because that meeting with the band is what's mentioned by Mark Wilkinson in the documentary on the Vigil Blu-ray, because Mark was there at the meeting, days beforehand, which is what the letter's relating to, because he'd gone to see the band because he'd done like the initial artwork sketches for what was going to be Vigil, because Vigil in the Wilderness of Mirrors was going to be the next Marillion album. That's what the theme was based on, and Mark had given them the images and put the concepts and stuff like that, and the band had basically poo-pooed everything.
The band didn't like the Vigil lyrics. I'm not quite sure how that works.
Yeah, I think the whole thing came crumbling down at that point, because whatever they'd all been working on, because you look at the timeline, because this was the end of August, start of September, they had the Fife 2 in the end of July. I mean, if you think Fish had been working with other people, like you mentioned in the letter, that he'd been working with Clannad, he'd been on the Nelson Mandela gig, and he'd been working. I mean,
you're working with Mickey as well.
Yeah,
well, that's it. I think that's the real, because I'm sure that he said he wanted to replace Mark with Mickey. At one point.
Yeah, that has been mentioned publicly.
Yeah.
So
Mick Wall mentioned that as well, didn't he?
Yeah.
So the whole timeline being, they'd gone to the Dalnagar Castle in Scotland, Dalnagar, however you pronounce it, our pronunciations are shite up.
Greg's just upsetting our Scottish listeners now, yeah.
And so in the next episode, Stuart will murder us all. It'll be fine. But yeah, I mean that the material, nothing seemed to gel. They were all in a bad place. And they say when they came home, then they got together to do this meeting, and everything just fell apart. But what also hasn't been mentioned in the letter and stuff is that he was even though he'd only been married to Tammy for a year, he was in a bad place in that marriage, because one of the reasons why they moved up to Scotland and out of the way was because she was having an affair with somebody in Gerrard's Cross. And this is being, again, told publicly. He's, it's out there. He's even been talking about it on videos on YouTube. So it's out there. So I think that also has a reason for, split, because he wasn't in a great place. And so I think the big culmination is that nobody's been the big bad guy in this situation.
I just get the impression that he kind of alienated himself from the band. He was getting all the media attention and all the pressure that went with that. He was drinking a lot more. Other members of the band had got married now, so he was the only single one at this point? I think Rothers still was, wasn't he?
No, him and Joe were together.
Were they? Okay, so he was the only single one at this point on the Clutching tour, and he just he distanced himself too far from the band. There was no way back, I don't think.
And like I say, he'd been working with other people, so he'd seen that there was other opportunities out there and thought, well, why be sad where you're at?
Listening to what he said there, I mean, there's no way anyone would accept those conditions.
No.
And it was inevitable that they would just accept it, and I think it was doomed.
As we may have said earlier in this episode, I don't think we'd be talking about the band at all now. If they'd stayed together, they wouldn't have lasted as long as this.
No, I don't think so.
And the band had been on tour with him for a year, and what must have been a pretty oppressive atmosphere.
Yeah, I think so.
You know, I'm sure they all just wanted the end of it.
Yeah, and that is something that was obvious from that interview in a few months before, and the performances on the Clutching at Straw tours. You could tell that the seeds of damage had been sown. There was just a question of it, coming to a head, and that must have happened in September.
Yeah, and I mean it's clear from Mark's book too. I mean, Mark goes from thinking Fish is fantastic when he first joins the band, and for the first 2 or 3 years, to by the end saying he's just a nightmare to work with.
Yeah, I think there's a story that Ian has told a few times of him doing a big gig, one of the German gigs, coming off stage, and Ian said that was great. Talking to Fish, and Fish saying I didn't really enjoy that, and Ian said we knew something was wrong at that point. There were 2 definite camps by then, weren't there, on the Clutching tour? The sort of pack mentality had gone, and it was the 4 musicians and Fish in a different camp altogether.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
But the gigs were great.
The gigs were amazing, yes, absolutely.
Great. I mean, there was power, there was performance. If you didn't know nothing about the band, I think you wouldn't realize that something is wrong. So
I totally agree.
So they gave the fan what they paid for sure. It's not like what we've seen with other bands that they leave the stage and they throw the guitar away, and there wasn't that kind of drama.
I remember reading, I was in Odyssey 6 or Odyssey 7, a Hanging Ditch in Manchester, going through the magazine section, came across a copy of Kerrang, read the announcement, and I could not believe that Marillion had broken up. Yeah. I mean, there was no indication to the fan of it that was on the cards or there was any risk of it happening. It was just shocking to me. I mean, that was my band. I just could not believe after seeing them build up, to where they had got to, that they just suddenly disintegrated.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. I was working in London at the time on the day the news broke, and across the road from where I worked was a little news agent. But I used to pop in and buy a can of pop and a Mars bar, and other chocolate bars are available. And I went in there, and there was a copy of it. It was either Sounds or Melody Maker. I can't remember which one it was. And there it was in the top corner, Fish leaves Marillion. I was like, what? So I bought paper and read it on the train on the way home from work, being absolutely dismayed. I couldn't believe it. It was, it's for me, they were my band, they were the thing, and suddenly it was over.
I don't remember who released it. Remember, I live in Malta, so my source was maybe I remember I used to get Kerrang by subscription. And to find the Sounds or Melody Maker, I don't remember what other newspapers there was. So I don't remember, since I'm not British, who released it first in the media. I really don't.
Tommy Vance.
Tommy Vance, yeah.
Tommy Vance read it out.
I wouldn't have had that opportunity to hear Tommy Vance. I only could have had the opportunity either a newspaper, which was those Sounds or Melody Maker, or a Kerrang.
Well, I've just had a look online to see what day of the week the 15th of September would be in '88, and it was a Thursday. So Tommy Vance will have read that out the day after on the Friday Rock Show.
Oh. And I think Kerrang would have been the week after, because isn't Kerrang released on a Wednesday? Well, it used to be, I think it was a Wednesday back then. Yeah, back when years since I bought it.
And again, I've told this story twice already on the podcast, so I apologise, listeners. And I found out when I went to the box office at the Royal Court in Liverpool on the Saturday morning to buy tickets for the Christmas show. Oh. And the guy at the box office said, it's off. Fish has left the band. I just wandered around Liverpool for an hour, absolutely shell-shocked.
But when this all happened, though, so we take a bit of a step back, they were pretty much at the height of their powers. Yes, you could say that Clutching didn't quite do what Misplaced did, but what Clutching did is it solidified the fan base. Some of the kind of the Johnny Come Latelys, or the people who were the Kayleys and Lavender people, might have petered off back then, but they were still filling out arenas. They really, really solidified the position. And, coming on to what would have been the 5th studio album, with, aiming for Bob Ezrin to come in as producer. that would it have been a step up?
Yeah, they were about to go up to the next league. That was the thing.
Yeah. So I mean, it material wise, we know with the clutching at straws and the original release in '99 with the bonus tracks on from what would have been the 5th album.
Yeah.
How much do we think may have actually survived, and how much would Bob Ezrin, do you think, would have ditched and made them start again?
Clearly, a lot of the lyrics and a lot of the music survived just on different albums, because they each managed to create very good albums using as a genesis the material they'd both been working on. They just couldn't see where they were going. And apparently Bob Ezrin wasn't impressed with what they had got, because he was probably unused to the way that they worked, which has always been painfully slow. And that was part of what was driving Fish crazy, that, he would go and they would have nothing that he could put words to. It just took a very long time for them to generate their material, as it still does. And Bob Ezrin just couldn't hear anything that suited Bob Ezrin. I think Bob Ezrin was the wrong choice, but they clearly were able, both of them, to produce what many consider to be 2 of their best albums immediately after they broke up from each other. That material was all in the pipeline. It was all in their heads and their souls at that moment in time.
Yeah.
So I think they could have produced a fantastic 5th album if it hadn't been for all the other stuff that was going on that was preventing them from seeing where their shared musical
Vision
future
was. Yeah.
That's just my personal view of it. It's not as though they both came out with crap albums afterwards.
Far from it. I mean,
exactly.
I mean, it was Vigil and Season's End, those 2 albums that actually got me into the Marillion Fish fandom properly.
It makes me even sadder that they broke up when they did, because they were, as somebody said, I think maybe you, at the height of their powers. And although it didn't sell as well, I thought Clutching at Straws was a much better album than Misplaced Childhood. I know I'm a heretic.
You may have said that on this podcast already, Guy. Let's stop you now before you go into your misplaced rant.
But Clutching at Straws was fantastic, and I just imagine that they would have produced, if they spent long enough at it, something equally good if they'd been able to get past all of their personal and business difficulties.
Claude, what were you about to say?
What Guy said, I don't know what you heard or what you have, but what we have, I have demos of tapes of the Season's End music, parts of the album of Season's End, with Fish on it. And Fish singing his visual lyrics with the Marillion band. So, the 5th album is there.
Is there more than was released on that?
Of course, yes.
Right.
That's when I tell you the Super Deluxe would do a good pension investment, but they're hard-headed. So when you were saying that, I said, it's true, it's sad. The 5th album was there.
Yeah, certainly at advanced demo stage is probably
yes. So basically, I can't remember where, because I always asked Kelly, can you tell me exactly what the place was where, he will remember where they recorded it. And if I sent him a couple of minutes, he'll tell me where and all that. Because
it was at Tone Deaf Studios in Oxford.
No, he mentioned the castle.
Oh, a Dalnagar castle.
That's the word.
That's where they were writing, but they did some demos in Oxford.
So, Guy, you should hear how well it was done, and the Vigil album lyrics with the Season's End music. That's it. And then they went, as you said, on 2 different things.
Different paths.
It's a pity, but that's history. You can't change it.
But I mean, it is a pity, but to be fair, with what happened and how it happened is why I'm here. So I mean, when it all happened, this is things kicked into gear quite quickly, because if you work out with Fisher's resignation or firing, or whichever way you want to look at it, between that happening in September and then him assembling his the genesis of his band and the genesis of people who he was working with to take his material forward, and then for Marillion to move forward, and looking for their singer, and the fact of it going from September and then by January, Steve Hogarth was part of the band. So that is just a matter of 4 months.
4 months, yeah.
Which
Now, I don't
now-
know how long it takes to employ someone or audition someone or test someone, but yeah.
Ask ACDC, because I've never seen a band move as quickly as they did when they replaced Bon Scott.
Yeah.
And
And they had a new album out in 6
and
weeks.
there is Bon Scott singing the songs of Back in Black too. Demo.
Yeah.
That's strange.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised. We talked about it when we reviewed The Thieving Magpie. I'm just surprised that even back in those days, EMI could get that together so quickly. I mean, second week in September, they agreed the split, and then the live album with overdubs on it was released on the 28th of November.
But do you not think there was possibly an idea in EMI's head in any case that they'd want to do another live album, or do you think it was just too close to Lorelei?
They were thinking of releasing a complete gig, maybe, and it was partially ready and off to release. And I mean, if you see all the gigs, the dates of the gigs, most of them have been released, and most of them are still sitting there as in the vaults of Warner's. Maybe one day we'll see the full light of them.
Yeah, but it's interesting to see with when all this was happening in the September, how much was EMI involved in even trying to look to, is there a way of salvaging the situation, because it was a major artist for them. Were they desperate to keep Fish together with Marillion, or do you think they were happy with the split, knowing that they could have two bands out of it and they would get a decent, the Fish's contract for leaving the band wasn't in a great position for him, because it was
depends who spoke to who. If EMI, their point of contact wasn't the band but John Arneson, it's another thing to keep the band together.
I mean, John Arneson will have been fearing for his own position as well, wouldn't he? So he was trying to protect his position managing the band.
Well, but did the rest of the band want John Arneson still?
Yeah, they did, I think, from what I can tell. Yeah.
Well, they kept him for a good few years after, didn't they?
They did.
Yeah, until he told them to go part-time when they sacked
And then yeah.
But he'd gone part-time on them. He'd gone part-time on them years ago. So, it's...
Let's not go there as business concerns.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing, I think Fish had floated an idea to follow Misplaced Childhood with an album called Geestfarer, hadn't he? Which was a Ghost Driver.
Ghost Driver. Yeah, I've heard about that.
With sort of recording some covers, and the idea being that this assassin was driving along in his car and tuning the radio and picking up different tracks. There'd be some originals and some covers. And he pitched that to the band, and they didn't like that idea.
I didn't like that idea.
Okay. Well, he didn't get rid of it altogether, did he? Because we got songs from the Mirror a couple of albums later, so 3 albums later, yeah.
But I mean, I can understand Fish wanting to have something as a bit of a break in between albums that isn't necessarily a live album.
Yeah, it's just to take the pressure off. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, Marillion have done that with Less Is More and with Friends from the Orchestra, where obviously they're not cover version albums, but they're albums that you can slot in to relieve the pressure between other albums. So it gives the band a chance to.
It's important to note that back in the 80s, Marillion's contracts required them to produce 2 original albums every year, and that if they didn't, then they would have reduced royalties on the second album, which ought to have been produced in the calendar year of the first album. They were perpetually producing what are called overcall albums, that they were not actually complying with their contract with the EMI record companies. This is something that always used to, I didn't really understand it when I was a teenager and loving music, where you'd get an album, there'd be 1 or 2 great tracks on it, and there'd be several tracks. You think, how could they possibly think this was worth having and put it out on an album? What we used to call filler. Some of it was dreadful, not on Marillion albums, but on lots of albums. And it was all because all the record company cared about was product, because they needed product to put in the stores to sell. They didn't care what was on it. If they could get 1 or 2 hit singles. But this is back before, we had the massive albums like the Michael Jackson album or the Bruce Springsteen album, where you'd get 7 singles off an album. Most of the time, the record companies just wanted your next album, please. You've come off the road, go into the studio, write and record an album, 6 weeks, get it out and get back out on the road making some more money. I think Marillion, like most bands, were absolutely exhausted by 1988 from what they'd produced. And the idea that they were now going to have to produce another album and then go out and tour that again was also weighing very heavily on their minds.
I wasn't aware of that.
Going on tour with Fish was not pleasant anymore.
No,
so they didn't want to do it.
No. I mean, if you think about Elton John's Imperial period, the early 70s, he was knocking 2 albums out in a year, but was he driven by that sort of a contract? I didn't realize that kind of carried on into the 80s.
Oh, yeah. It wasn't an artistic decision. It was purely a contract that you'd signed that required you to do it on pain of getting half the royalties for the second one if you didn't get it out in the... And Marillion perpetually were late with their albums.
Yeah.
If that's true, EMI obviously knew the band couldn't fulfill it, because what band could?
But back in the late 70s, early 80s, lots of bands could. Blues rock bands were doing that. I guess that's why Fish suggested, let's do an album which is half covers.
Yeah,
we haven't got to write half of it. We just have to play it. And, we'll be able to get another album out. As somebody said, it's a stopgap measure. The reason that the band do it now is not because they have any contract with anybody. They just have this thing with the fans where the fans are clamoring for more material and don't like having to wait 5 or 6 years between new albums. It's a slightly different imperative to the one that was driving bands who had a commercial relationship with a record label.
Well, there's always 15 live albums between a studio album now, isn't there? So we're all right.
Plus your tour downloads.
And the download.
Those seem to have stopped, don't they? Tour downloads.
Strange.
Well, you have to have a tour to have a tour download.
I have a feeling they may reappear soon in a different form.
Ah, right. Okay.
Or not, as the case may be. You might have to cut that out, Greg.
I heard
you're digging your own hole there.
Don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do.
But it's funny, I think the two album a year thing was probably born from the 60s and even in the 70s, before you had as many international hits. Yes, you would have some stars from America who would come over and a few Brits going across to America, but I think it's before the bands like Marillion and other bands in the 70s and 80s who made it big in Europe and made it big around the world. So by the time, if they were going to have to tour, it would take them 6 to 8 months to tour everything. So there's no way you could necessarily fit 2 albums and 2 tours into a...
But as Guy alluded to earlier, an album would only be 30 minutes at most, wouldn't it, in those days?
Yeah, and it came from a time when they didn't expect artists to write their own material. So the artist could go out performing, they would collect material from songwriters and then present it to the artist to record on their next album. That's how artists were able to put out 2 albums a year. If you look at the writing credits, very seldom are the band actually writing all or indeed most of the material on their own albums. That's something that arose during the first kind of heavy and prog eras, the late 60s and early 70s.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people, even, you go into like the pop world, and somebody like Kathy Dennis, who had her own career in the early 90s, she stopped doing it herself and just spends all the time writing for other people. And they've got so many little workhouses of people who you might have had one-hit wonders years ago, but they realise that the money's in the writing, so they can just sell their songs to all these different pop acts, and just to keep the machine turning.
No comment on that. The money's not. The money's only in the writing. If your publisher doesn't screw you.
Yeah.
You know too much, Guy.
God bless you.
Who saw the band on the Clutch intro tour?
I did.
Yeah.
Whereabouts did you catch them, Keith?
3rd of November, 3rd November 1987 at Wembley Arena.
Yeah.
I was stood about 2/3 in the area downstairs, and we got told off for standing on the seats and dancing. But,
Okay.
that
I
was
was going to complain.
yeah.
I still have the tickets of Birmingham, and you see, uncut.
That's what.
I didn't go. 2 tickets.
Oh man.
Remember, logistics in those days was difficult. It's not like,
Yeah.
you know, you get the flight, and I was young and whatever.
And
Yeah,
you
where
didn't
did
know
you
it was
catch
the last time I saw them. I saw them at the NEC in
Did you?
Birmingham. I was on the bottom at the back. It seemed quite distant. I mean, despite my experience at Milton Keynes Bowl, I'd subsequently seen them at the Hammersmith Odeon, and although I was pleased for them that they were playing somewhere like the NEC, they'd come a long way from where I first started seeing them, and I felt a bit alienated from. I was happy for their success, but I wasn't really enjoying the show. I'd never enjoy arena shows from the back, and I couldn't get any closer. That's how popular they were.
Yeah.
What about you, Mark? Where did you see him?
I saw the 3 Wembley shows, and then I saw the 3 Hammersmith shows.
Right.
So, kind of unlike you guys, I didn't find it was as enjoyable as the 86, 85 tours.
Really?
It may have been, like Guy said, it may have been just because it was a bigger venue in the arena. No, I did. I loved it, but there was something missing. I don't know if the arguments made it less personal. I don't know.
I saw the same one that Keith did. I went to the first Wembley Arena show and I got tickets through the web. So I was on the 3rd row, right in the middle. I had a brilliant view. It was a great gig.
The web too, through
Yeah.
the web.
Absolutely brilliant gig.
But
I also saw them at Sheffield on the 2nd leg. That was one of the ones that got blown out when Fish had lost his voice and then moved to the end, I think, sort of March time. But yeah, great gigs. And you, as Keith had said, or I think it was Claude had said, you couldn't get any sort of sense that the band was falling apart at that stage, apart from the fact that they'd blown out the Sheffield gig because of Fish's voice.
yes, but when I compare the 1984 gig at Chippenham with the 1986 gig of the Clutching at Straws, there is some sense of too much politics in the beginning of the songs that get a bit boring. But the power was there. But when I listen to the full gig, you know what I'm saying, Mark, of Chippenham, I'm saying Chippenham because it's recorded really well, and you get Lorelei. I think, although the music is good, I'm not talking about the style of music, I'm talking about the power that comes out from the band. I think the 1984 gig next to the 1986 gig, I'd listen to Chippenham more than a 1986 gig. It's just my opinion on the power that it comes out.
And then you take the break, and then you're looking at 1989 when they come back with H, and they're like a reinvigorated band. They're you're looking at the live stuff. So if you look at the performance at the Lorelei, and then you talk about Chippenham, but then you go on to say the Rocksteady gig at Leicester, and there's a new dynamic in the band.
Yeah, because it's fun again. They've had a tour with Fish, a year with Fish, where it was awful. The atmosphere was bad. Now everybody's pulling in the same direction again.
But they have to. It's almost like they have to prove themselves again.
There was an element of that, yeah.
The script, the script days, and then Fish also had to, pull himself up by his boots with his new band, and give himself his new energy, and his moving forward. So I mean, when was the first? What did you hear first? Was it Hooks and You came out before State of Mind?
Yes.
Yeah.
So did any of you guys get to see Fish early on?
I saw him in Leeds on the first night of the tour for State of Mind.
Oh,
So
no.
when was that? The September, October, was it?
I'm just trying to check the date actually, but 26th of October 1989. I saw him at Leeds University.
All the vigil was recorded and ready to go by the August of 89.
Yeah.
And AMI had promised him the Earth essentially to hold his album back until Season's End was going to come out.
Well, he did the Scottish tour, he did the tour of the Highlands, and then it immediately rolled into England. So 24th of October was Stirling, 25th was Ayr, 26th was Leeds, 28th was Blackburn, 29th was Manchester, and it kind of rolled on from there.
Yeah, because he got State of Mind out.
Yes.
Was that in the September, I think? It was September, October time. We'll be dealing that in one of our next episodes.
Yeah.
It was definitely out.
Yeah, and at the same time, was it August when people were given a chance with the web to go and see the Hooks and You video shoot at Islington Academy?
Sounds about right.
It wasn't Islington Academy, it was
Astoria.
Brixton Academy.
Brixton Academy.
Was it Brixton?
Brixton Academy. Yeah, it's Brixton Academy. Because that was the first chance that the fan club guys had got to see H in a video shoot.
Well, we talked about the tour, and we've talked about how you guys felt when you'd heard it all. What did you make of the sort of the Thieving Magpie? Did you think it was a cut and paste job, or did you enjoy it for what it was?
The sound was good. The sound was good. I'm always pissed off when it's bits and pieces of a gig. It bothers me till today. I don't like it. It's either the whole gig or nothing.
I agree.
That's my
I
opinion.
didn't like it. I didn't like it. That's why, as a collector, I just bought bootlegs back in those days because I loved the full gig with all the gig banter, the jokes, the audience participation. All that stuff is so important. And if that's cut out, well, it's
the only thing, the positive thing about that, besides that the sound was good, overdubs, or I don't care what was done, is that it gave me the knowledge back at that time what was already on the shelves recorded in full. Because remember, we had no access for nothing. We were just archivists from a very young age. And that, it gives you a plus what there is, which is there is still, and the Freaks was from a radio station. The Hammersmith was from recorded multi-track and all that,
Yeah.
But what can we do? We were young. It was 1988. So
I bought the 2 CD version, and of course the second CD had all the misplaced
yeah.
on it, which actually made it flow quite well. Certainly that one CD, but the rest of it did feel a bit. At the time, I felt a bit stop-start. It's a collage.
It's a collage of hits. Yeah, it's a collage of hits. We were happy with what we had.
We were happy with what we had, and we listened to it, and it was great. But knowing when you compare it to what's available now and what we've seen now, it is not very good. But at the time, it was great. But I mean, I don't even know if it's ever been discussed to be reissued in some way, shape, or form. I don't think it ever has been.
No,
because it's not the greatest collection under the sun.
Well, I think what goes against it now is that a number of the gigs have been released in the box sets, haven't they? Not all of them. But
not all of them, no.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to see the Sheffield 84 come out because I was there. But
I wanted Edinburgh 83.
Well, there you go.
Worst ever Marillion cover.
Oh, here he goes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I bet they didn't fight over that artwork.
Yeah, was it Wilkinson stuff?
It's Mark Wilkinson.
Yes,
yeah.
Mark Wilkinson. Yeah, we asked him about it.
Definitely not good for portraits. Forget it.
Well, and attempting to get all 5 members into a 7-inch square. Very, very difficult.
He didn't have a lot of time in his defence, did he?
With all respect and love, Mark Wilkinson. With all respect.
I was talking to John a couple of weeks ago when we were preparing for this, and I said I was offered the Thieving Magpie original artwork a couple of years ago, but I said no.
I'll give you a tenner.
I like it. I still like it.
You're making my point for me.
Yeah, I think it was £900,000 or something. £900,000.
That's pretty. I think that's pretty reasonable. I might have gone for that. Even though I don't like it.
I'm trying to look up.
You like it that much, John?
I think the Besides Themselves cover's worse than the
Which
the
one?
Thief and Magpie cover.
Which one?
Besides themselves.
Besides Themselves covers.
Oh no, I quite like that
I
one.
like that. I like that, yeah.
Yeah, I like the way all the clips of all the other singles are all sort of welded into it. No, I like that one.
Yeah.
There's
Could
no
have done
accounting for
something better.
taste, listeners, is there?
No, definitely not.
I'm sorry to keep jumping back to the Hogarth era, but was anybody at the Crooked Billet?
No.
No.
No,
That was 8th of June, 89.
They're all dead. It was so cramped. They're all dead.
Couple of weeks, couple of months out of date. So, well, that had already happened.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
If any of our listeners were there, please send a message into the Facebook group. It looked like a pretty memorable gig. And again, I think wasn't that Mr. Kelly's doing? Didn't he?
Yes.
Didn't he promise it for free food?
Pretty much.
Yeah, well, they were recording just down the road, and he went in and said, "Oh, if we eat here for free, can we put a gig on?" And they went, "Yeah, of course you can." And before you knew it, it was chaos.
That's the Marillion way, though, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. It was. I think there is a video, a home video, which I think Joe Rothery actually filmed for a couple of tracks, and you can really see what how they were jammed in like sardines, and people climbing in windows and all sorts to actually see the tiniest little room. I'm sure it would have been a great experience to be there.
Absolutely. I've never been to Crooked Billet. Have you? Any of you guys been to CH there?
I had tickets. Was it last year?
Last year you had tickets, yeah.
In the end.
No,
Yeah, I was poorly last year, so I didn't get a chance to go anywhere. So I think
friends
maybe
who went and they said that the room is really small that the gig was in.
intimate is the word you're looking for.
Yeah, yeah, that's the word. That's the word, Keith. Thank you for that. So ultimately, and I think we were all gutted at the time when it happened, but I think we can agree that it wasn't the end of the world, was it?
Yeah.
Not in the slightest.
No, but as you said, we all took it as a surprise from the papers, because back in the days we had just the tape bootlegs, and let's face it, they were a big plus for people who lived abroad like me. We used to send tapes and this and that. It was not a business thing from my end. It was just being happy with the band and listening. And till the last gig, you would have never expected that the band would have remained without the singer, because on every gig I heard, and today, which I have super better quality, where you never hear Fish saying, "Come on, boys, let's get on with it." There was never a clue. If you were like me, thousands of miles away, and not knowing what's getting on in the band, or you have a friend who's close to the band and who knows the internal stuff, what's going on, you would have never imagined that it would happen. Okay, people do argue, but not on a level that I'm thinking of leaving. I mean, we see several gigs where you hear the guitarist or the singer, and you can see him. There was never that kind of thing of, I'm going to get over and done with it. Nothing, because even from the gigs we see that we managed to get, you even see them smiling at times. I mean, if you see Lorelei and the ones that came after, you don't see coldness. At times you even see Fish either with his arm round Steve or his arm round Pete and all that. There wasn't that kind of constantly, so that's why me being so far, probably I took it even much more at heart than you guys. Maybe you live there, maybe you hear rumors or this or that. Something I had to read in the paper much more later than you guys, until I receive it by post. So
not really. I mean, being in a band is an incredible amount of compromise as well, isn't it? For Fish is a great artist, but can you imagine working with him? How difficult that would be?
his personality is so strong, and that was to their benefit when they were starting and getting into,
He's made the
getting,
difference, didn't he? Yeah.
But I think it's a fact that they were on such a constant slog for years, where there was just gig after gig and then recording after recording without any kind of time off to recharge themselves and get away from each other for a bit.
Yeah, you're probably right there, actually, because
Maybe.
I think it's been said before, if they'd had come off the end of the Misplaced Childhood, the Clutchings tour, had 8 months to a year off to recharge their batteries, maybe to pursue something themselves, and then met back up again.
Yes, but then we go back to what Guy said. So,
well, they're held by the contract.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Since is it calculated? EMI calculates when you end the recording of Misplaced till you go into the studio to start to record Clutching. That's the period that EMI calculate.
It's the release date. It's 2 in a year.
Yeah, 2 in a year.
Yeah.
But
they were doing one every, they did, the first 3 were 1 a year. Then, Clutching was 2 years after that.
They had renegotiated in 1985 after they released Misplaced Childhood.
It's impossible. You have to tour, get ideas. It's madness. Basically, it's a signed declaration of suicide.
And I think the other thing that didn't help, well, probably accelerated the split in the band wasn't Fish the last one to get married? So the other guys had got wives, and
let's talk about first wives.
The boys together. No,
first wives, second wives
together. Mentality that they had when they first started out, that had gone, and then Fish had a period where he was the only one that wasn't married. So that he'd have been wanting to go out and have a drink, and the guys will all have been at home with their wives, I presume.
I also, at the time, I thought that Fish thinks he's Peter Gabriel. I never thought Marillion would have any difficulty finding another singer and carrying on, because I knew that they wrote all the music, and the music was what was actually important. I say as somebody who writes words, but the music was what was going to continue to enable Marillion to put out great albums. But I thought Fish would die on his arse. I thought he didn't have much actual talent. He wasn't a great singer. He didn't write anything apart from words, and that he wouldn't be able, unlike Peter Gabriel, to produce material that was compelling. To what extent that has been proved correct is a subject for another day and for other people to discuss. But his first album was fantastic because, as he has subsequently done, he managed to tap into other people's talents, just as he had done with Marillion. He's very much ridden on the back of very talented people, and put his distinctive vocals over the top of great music produced by the likes of Mickey Simmons, Robin Bolt, Frank Usher. I'm not sure that as time went on and people got fed up of being used up by him, that his material was as compelling. Although I know in later years, people have lionized his work, and people think that his later, or particularly his last album, is the best thing he ever did. I'm not in that camp. I don't think he ever improved on Vigil.
I would just like to distance myself from everything that Guy has just said, because I don't agree with any of it.
What I will say, what I will agree with is...
Other chocolate bars are available.
No, it's great. That's your opinion, and I value your opinion. I just don't agree with it.
I love Fish. I've bought every single album he's ever put out.
I know you
and
have.
I've supported him, been to lots of concerts, willed him to succeed.
Yeah.
Because I think that he's a jobbing person. He's somebody who's really put his back into it. He's really made the effort to make it work in the face of adversity, and I really admire that about him.
I didn't think he would struggle when they split, though. I thought we would get what we originally got, which was 2 acts that I was really into.
Right.
And we have, and we've made an entire podcast about Fish's albums as well as Marillion's. The era and the type of music you get from him is based on his musical co-writer, and that's why there are these different very different flavors through his albums.
Yes.
But I still think he's incredibly talented, and
he's a
enigmatic, I think would be the word.
He's a thieving magpie, John.
Oh, there you go. That's better.
But I think through his solo career, there's been so many times that he's been the best that he can be, but there's also so many times where he's been his own worst enemy, and he's self-inflicted so much harm onto himself by either overdoing something or just bad decisions and trusting the wrong people and working with some of the wrong people.
I think
His personal life too, huh? Remember, boys, his personal life didn't help at some moments in time. I mean, you know, I don't want to go into detail. It's his personal life, but it affects you in your line of work. It really affects you.
But
Well,
now,
I mean, there's some
I
stories
mean,
on
now he's in a good place, isn't he? He's
yes.
Oh yeah, where is he on the planet?
somewhere in Scotland.
he's in a croft.
Fernery.
Burnley, that's it.
All right. I thought.
Yeah, I have to say, like what John said is that I thought that when the split happened, that Fish would be the one who would go on to have the career, and Marillion would just sort of fizzle out.
Oh no, I thought they would both be okay, Keith. I didn't think
No,
Marillion would fizzle out.
Oh, I'll rephrase that. I thought Fish would be like the mega star,
Yeah.
and Marillion would be just, you know, a great band. You know what I mean? Little did we know how it will sort of work out for both of them. But that was my perception at the time.
And I know there's been a lot of people who've said as well that Marillion should have changed their name, and I'm 100% against that. I think they it was their legacy that they wanted to keep it, and I think, you know, you can say that it's worked against them to a degree, but I think it would have harmed them more if they'd actually changed their name.
I don't think it has worked against him, has it? Not in the long run.
Not in the long run.
Not in the long run, no. So there was certainly a time when people said to you, "Oh, I like Marillion." People would like look down their nose at you, you know, or they'd laugh at you. And then over the years, that's turned into, "Are they still going?" So now it's like, "Oh, really?" You know, and it sort of changes over time, you know. And I quite happily go into work when I go into an office wearing a Marillion t-shirt with various stickers over it and logos on it and artwork on it. And the youngsters, yeah, I say youngsters, all those under 25 are really interested and really, you know, want to know about it.
Really?
Yeah. People of our own generation just go, "Oh, wasn't that Fish?" You know?
And chips.
Yeah. And it is strange how you can position yourself over the years.
Let's put the credit where due. Let's face it. It had to be the band and Fish to be what they were. Without both of them together, there wouldn't have been the Marillion of that day and today. So let's put the credit where should be. He worked a lot. He worked his ass off. He has his ways. He takes different roads than other people, but they managed to arrive where they arrived. Yeah. I mean, there was good music. I mean, there were very good vibes. You know, the gigs we hear, the gigs we see, some of them, because we weren't lucky that people recorded much on video, and whatever the differences were, the music came out. In my opinion, till the last gig they played as a band in '88, whatever, '89. I can't say that there was some kind of hatred in the music, some kind of bad vibe. If you listen to it, just listen to it, it's enough. You can't say anything. So I think that they gave the 100% to the fans till the last day they were together. What happened after is history, in my opinion. So, you know, whatever happened. I mean, things happen. I mean, my left foot complains about my right foot. So
and I think as well now that all in a good place.
Yeah, really. And to be honest, I'd really like to read his autobiography, especially where
I would, if he can get it past the lawyers.
Guy, you know all about
that. Yeah, he won't. I don't think he'll be consulting me.
But Guy, as as we obviously, myself, for the listeners, myself, Claude, Mark, we all help research material for Mark Kelly's book. And Guy, I know you looked at it and you sort of gave guidance on it. I'm not asking you to tell me the stories you took out, but were there a lot of stories that got taken out, or was it just, the odd one? Or
The stuff that got taken out was personal stuff. It was not to do with the band. Nothing that he wrote about anybody in the band got taken out.
oh, right, interesting.
We're not interested in his personal life, actually. I mean, we're interested in the music and the band. Okay.
And to be fair, the stuff that got taken out about his personal life didn't get taken out because there was anything in there that was going to get him into any kind of legal trouble. It just wasn't worth it for him to put it in.
Wasn't worth the stress or the hassle.
Yeah,
It was
I think it was worth writing it, but it wasn't worth publishing it.
Yeah.
Good. We're fine with that.
Yeah.
Fine.
Well, we've talked about Fish leaving Marillion. I think I'd like to just add at the end of that, God bless Steve Hogarth, because he brought us a whole new world in Marillion.
Yep.
He did indeed.
Yeah.
That's another podcast, or another 135 podcasts episodes as we've already done. But thanks very much for listening. Some of what you've heard, as I say, is fact, some of it's opinion, and some of it's rumour. I would just like to thank Guy Vickers.
Thank you.
Thanks, Guy. Mark McCormac.
Thank you.
Claude.
Hello, thank you very much.
Thank you, mate. And Keith.
Thank you very much.
And Keith, Claude, and Mark are all from Marco's Marillion.
Easy for you to say.
I can't even say it. I can't say the word Marillion on a Marillion podcast. From Marco's Marillion Museum, online museum. Have a look at it if you don't know it. Check it out. They post lots and lots of exciting stuff, and they've seen everything. I mean, everything. Thank you to my co-host, Craig Houston.
Why, thank you.
It's good night from me.
And it's good night from him.
Take care.
And we'll be back with the fishy singles. Woo! Stay alive.
Whoop.
Thanks for listening to Planet Marzipan Podcast. Please like and subscribe from whichever platform you get your podcasts from. You can contact us at planetmarzipanpodcast@gmail.com and check out marillion.com, fishmusic.scot for all the good stuff.